Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Black Hills Information Security Webcast. Joining me today is Bronwen Aker, and today we're going to talk about keeping things local, right? We're going to talk about local LLMs, and I know that a lot of people are interested in this because we had about 1,800 to 1,900 people register for today live, and so there's going to be a lot of people. I'm sure the recording is going to be watched too. So if you're watching the recording right now, hello from the past. So thank you so much for joining us today for this Black Hills Information Security Webcast. Bronwen loves this topic. Like when you talk to Bronwen, like she lights up, she gets excited, she loves talking about all these things. She's had a chance to go and speak about these things at other events, and now she's speaking to us. And she's a fantastic part of the Black Hills team. If you ever need a red team pen test, threat hunt, or any of the other services we provide, please let us know. Reach out to us at blackhillsinfosec.com. And with that, Brahman, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I'll be back for Q&A. And if you, for some reason, the satellite disappears for longer than we expect, I'll pop back in just to let everyone know that she'll be back momentarily. And with that, Brahman, you need anything before I go?
No, I think that's a wonderful send-off. Thank you.
All right, Megan, go ahead and bring up those slides. I'll see you in a little bit.
All right. So, I have my screen share going, and hopefully you can see. There it is. All right. So, keeping things local, how to make your own private LLM. Things that we're going to explore today. First, I'm going to give a brief overview of AI in general and LLMs in particular. Going to talk about why you might want to consider keeping a local LLM. Mostly it's going to boil down to security and ethical concerns. I'm also going to discuss some popular LLM options, ways that you can enhance your LLM, and yes, I have demo because, of course, what is a technical talk without demos? Why should you care about what I have to say? Well, okay, hi, I'm Bronwen Aker, also known as Corvus, sometimes called the Cybrarian. I've gotten to that point in my life where it's kind of embarrassing to admit how long I did software development. And yeah, I did web, I did desktop, I did mobile, I did this, that, and a partridge in a pear tree. Then, also, about the same time I was doing a lot of that, I worked for many years as a technical trainer, which was a wonderful experience and something that I still kind of miss. So, this is the next best thing. Then in 2017, I decided that I needed a change because there wasn't enough challenge in my life. So, I went into cybersecurity. About a year after that, this guy named John Strand asked me to come to work for him, and I've been with Black Hills Information Security ever since. My latest obsession, as advertised, is AI research. And so, what I'm here today to do is to share some of what I know. I don't know it all. I absolutely don't know it all. But what I do know, I'm happy to share with others. The bottom line, I'm a geek who's been around for a while, and I've seen a lot of natural fertilizer. Full disclosure, this presentation was created using AIs like ChatGPT, Copilot, DALL-E, and Midjourney. However, they were at all times under adult supervision, the caveat being that you must assume that I'm an adult. Your mileage may vary. Now, what is AI? Artificial intelligence is actually a huge, huge field, and it's been around for decades. It's the branch of computer science that is aimed at creating systems that perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. So the whole purpose of artificial intelligence, and I'm not talking about just LLMs, I'm talking about the entire massive field of artificial intelligence. It's all about simulating and emulating human thinking processes. Now, AI includes a lot of different things like robotics, also computer vision. Computer vision is what leads to OCR, optical character recognition, face recognition, those wonderful cameras that snap your license plate when you do something you should not, going through an intersection, that sort of thing. More recently, we're getting into things like natural language processing, NLP, and that helped contribute tremendously to the large language models developments. Then we have expert systems. Expert systems have a very narrow focus where they're doing a tiny specific task, not doing it's expert systems have a narrow focus where your generalized AI is trying to do everything all the time. So, where do LLMs fit into all of this stuff? As you saw from the previous slide, LLMs are a subset of generative AI. They are text-based, meaning that all they do is text. So if you're using one of the commercial chatbots like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude, and if they are able to generate an image in addition to text, then that's called a multimodal AI. So it has more than one mode that it can operate in. LLMs are also probabilistic, wonderful polysyllable. Probabilistic means it deals with probabilities. So if you've ever used you go into a website and you're typing something in a field and it's auto completing and giving you options of what it thinks you're going to say next, then that's also based on probabilities. Current models are trained on massive amounts of data. As a matter of fact, I believe that we recently had something where the uh, the president issued an executive order or something that basically forgave all of the AI companies. They have permission to scrape whatever they want, regardless of intellectual property laws. That's going to be an interesting fight once that hits the courts. Now, most of the LLMs, chatbots, and so on that you're going to find commercially are general purpose. So instead of having a narrow focus like the expert systems do, they're going to be broad spectrum and have all kinds of things that you ask them. So you can ask them about astronomy, you can ask them about physics, or you can ask them how to make a nice creamy rice pudding. Lots of different options. And without question, remember, AI has been around for decades, but easy access to large language models has popularized AI like never before. Key question, why would you want to go local? The biggest reason is privacy and security. I don't care what the EULA says. I know that a company like OpenAI or Anthropic or whoever's doing the development, they may have the best of intentions, and they may genuinely not train additional models based on content prompts or whatever that you send to them. But we live in a world where hackers are, and not all of them are nice hackers. And so if I'm sending sensitive information over the internet to a third party company, and then whatever they've done with it has to be sent back to me, well, there are lots of opportunities for that data to be intercepted by bad guys. So privacy and security are very real concerns. With a local LLM, then none of that data is going to leave your machine, your network, or your intranet. So this is an important factor. Local LLMs are not just for individuals. They're also for organizations that want to retain tighter control over their data and information. And again, the sensitive files, the data, it all remains under your control. You're not sending it off to somebody's black box where who knows what's going to happen to it. And again, they may have the best of intentions, but if somebody breaks into their system, all bets are off. Another reason to go local is customization. Now, I know that OpenAI has for premium subscribers, they provide the ability to create custom GPTs. And I have created several. Probably the one I use most even now is a private GPT, my CVE summarizer. If I'm reading a pen test report and the tester has dropped 5 CVEs into a single paragraph, I don't have all of those memorized. So I have created a tool that I use. And if you go to ChatGPT and look up CVE Summarizer, you'll probably be able to find it. And it generates a report like output when I say, tell me about this CVE. And that helps me do my job better. You can do the exact same kind of thing with a local LLM. So you can take a local LLM, fine tune it to your needs. Doesn't work right the first time, you tweak it some more. Doesn't work right then, you tweak it some more, and so on and so forth. So you can create a custom model. You can also use something called retrieval augmented generation. Oh my God, can we obfuscate this further? Yeah, I don't make this stuff up. I'm just the messenger. Retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, is where I'll have a stack of documents or data, and I'm able to use an LLM to interact with it. So my data is here, my LLM is here, my user and user interface is here. So the user asks the LLM a question, the LLM reaches out to the stack of data and documents and searches through, finds what it thinks is relevant, and then it goes back and forth. So using retrieval augmented generation, I don't have to have all of the data I'm accessing baked into my LLM model. So if you have data that is dynamic, that is changing frequently, RAG is probably a better option for you if you're going to have it where you can communicate with your data with using an LLM as an intermediary. If you want to go way down the rabbit hole, then you're going to get into training your own model from scratch. If you choose to go down that rabbit hole, I have a couple of recommendations. First, make sure your maths are up to spec. You're going to want to have some uh, training about statistics and statistical probability, and that will help you when you get into the data science training. I guarantee every time that I've had to work on training my own model, it's something that will blow your buffers and melt your brain. And if you're sick like me, you'll enjoy it, but it is fairly intensive, and it is something that, you know, if you want to go that route, there is definitely a need for skilled people who can do that sort of thing. So, cybersecurity concerns about large language models. If you've heard Ben, he gave a wonderful talk yesterday talking about how his workshop on attacking LLMs. Well, what do hackers do? Jailbreaking and prompt injection. Those are techniques hackers use to get AI, large language models especially, to do things that they shouldn't do. And that can be revealing data that they shouldn't, or providing access to a system that they shouldn't. So, data leakage and privacy risks are genuine concerns that have to do with large language models. There's also model bias and model poisoning, and those are two separate things. Model bias is where the model itself has a bias towards a specific attitude. And in the West, one of the unfortunate realities is that pretty much all of the commercially available LLMs are biased. And it's likely that if you're anything other than a white cis male, you're probably not um, in the favored group. And that has to do with the data on which those models were trained. If you're getting a model that has come from a different part of the world, those models will reflect the cultural biases from that region as well. So we need, as technologists, to acknowledge that bias exists. It isn't necessarily, I'm not going to say that all bias is bad because let's admit it. If I were creating an LLM model for a nonprofit that was serving um, homeless people in a dominantly Black region, I would probably want to have a model, an LLM model, that was biased in favor of that population so that that nonprofit could better serve the population that they're trying to help. The flip side of it is if I was developing an LLM for an HR department or for a company that deals with recruiting, I would want to minimize the bias that it has so that there wouldn't be as much bias against people who have Black sounding names, and they would get a fair shake when it comes to getting interviews and being considered for jobs based on their skills and their genuine merit. So these are considerations. As technologists, we need to consider it and we need to deal with it appropriately. Poisoning is different. Poisoning is where you have a model and malicious code has been added to it so that when somebody downloads and runs that model, then that malicious code executes on their system, and you know the rest of that story. There's also social engineering factors. Social engineering and automation has become harder to detect. Frankly, I mean, it used to be that you could tell a phishing email just because of the typos. But now the bad guys are using LLMs to make better phishing emails and other kinds of phishing tools, and they can do it at scale. So this is another concern about LLMs. And of course, hey, what would cybersecurity be? What would any tool implementation be without poor API implementation and authentication controls? That's where we get into the usual suspects when we're talking about any type of technology. Oops. So, the components you need to build a local LLM. Yes, I saw questions about how many GPUs do you need to run one. The truth of the matter is, technically, to run an LLM, you don't need any, but the GPUs will make a big difference on how snappy the responses are. So let's talk about what you actually need. You do need hardware. You've got to have a computer. The GPUs absolutely speed processing, but they're not 100% necessary. More GPUs means that you will have more compute power. If you're getting into training your own models, then you are going to want those GPUs because otherwise it'll take until the next ice age before that model is done training. The other thing that you're going to want is RAM and disk space. Now, I know that I say 16 gigabytes of RAM as a minimum, but you do know that RAM stands for rarely adequate memory, not random access memory, right? The other thing that you're going to want to have is a lot of disk space. It is not uncommon for some of these LLM models to be 20, 30, 40 gigabytes or more. So if you have more than one on your local system, that's going to eat a lot of disk space very quickly. The next thing you're going to need is software. And the software that you use is going to determine your user interface, model management, and other capabilities that you have when you're interacting with the LLM models. Olama, LM Studio, GPT for All, those are some very popular ones. There are many. I'm going to have even more names a little bit later on. Finally, the thing that you need is the model itself. Now, the model is where the actual data is. And I can use the Olama software or LM Studio or whatever software with any one of dozens of different models. And models are trained with different capabilities. So some will be general purpose, some are better for chat, others are better for taking specific instructions. So this is where you need to know a little bit about what it is you're trying to include. And these are just a few of the different models available. Speaking specifically about GPUs, not all GPUs are created equal. NVIDIA absolutely has a corner on the market for GPUs. AMD is a player, but they're not as serious a player as NVIDIA. Now, my personal system, I've got an RTX 4080 and it's a reasonable high-end consumer option, but you can go all the way to the H100s where you have to be living the lifestyle of the rich or shameless before you can afford those. The AMD, if you are an open source devotee and you only want to use open source stuff, then you're going to want to go with AMD because their software, but you will be very grateful when you have GPUs. Did I drop out?
You did, but you're back.
Okay. Um, so long story short, it's just NVIDIA has the lock on the market. You're going to get the most bang for your buck there. You don't absolutely have to have the GPUs, but you will be so grateful when you do. All right. Let's talk about software. Olama is an open source command line interface bit of software. So for you Linux geeks, you're probably going to want to go with Olama. As I said, it is open source. It uses the MIT license. It's usable on Linux, Mac, Windows, and Docker. So you have a lot of different platform opportunities there. It has active communities on Discord and Reddit. So there are lots of opportunities there for you to be able to get help or to learn from other people's mistakes. I love learning from other people's mistakes. I make enough of my own. And when you are using Olama, it will pull models from the Olama repo, not from any of the others. LM Studio is another very popular and powerful tool. The the cool thing about LM Studio, you have both a GUI, but if you're one of those people you like to use Linux headless, you can do the same kind of thing with LM Studio. You can run it from a command line as well. Unlike Olama, LM Studio was developed and is maintained by Element Labs. They do, however, provide a limited license for personal, non-commercial use. Like Olama, it's usable on multiple platforms, Linux, Mac, and Windows. And their community is mainly active on Discord. If there are other places for people to connect with other LM Studio users, please let me know because I'd love to add that information here. Now, unlike Olama, which pulls from their vetted repos, LM Studio pulls from Hugging Face. And Hugging Face is kind of like GitHub. You have to use a little bit of caution. You have many, many more options. I'll show you shortly. But that's also, if you're not careful, that's where you might wind up getting one of those poisoned LLM models. Oh, another cool thing about LM Studio, though, it has native RAG features. So if RAG is something you want to explore more fully, you might want to check out LM Studio. And I did say there are many other software options. And I just do not have the bandwidth to explore them all. I've heard good things about GPT for all and also Misty, but you can see there's a lot of stuff. This is a an active, dynamic field that is changing every single day. Choosing an LLM model, a couple of things you want to know. There are naming conventions for LLM models. The first thing you're going to see is the base name, which is the core model name. Then you'll have a version number and a parameter count. Those are usually in the billions or trillions. It's not likely that you'll be able to run something with trillions of parameters on a small personal system. Just fair warning. Then there's also the training type. So you can have your base model, you can have a chat model, or you can have an instruct model. The instruct is not going to be something that you're going to have a conversation with. It's something where you're going to do kind of a fire and forget one shot interaction time and time again, where a chat model is something where you can have that interactive dialogue where you're refining and having a conversation with that model. Additional model modifiers may also be included in the name. So if you are looking at Mistral 7B Instruct, what that means is the model was developed by Mistral AI. It has 7 billion parameters and it has been fine-tuned for following one-shot instructions. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. So, the two main repositories I'm focusing on for this talk are Olama and Hugging Face. Olama is very easy to get used. One of the other cool things, I talked about how not all models are created equal. Some have a much more focused purpose, and you can filter which models you want to use when you drill down into the Olama website or into Hugging Face, and I'll show you that in a moment as well. When you drill down, then you can get all of the metadata. And one of the very cool things is that when you're working with Olama, the command, you see Olama run Llama 3, that is the command you need to execute and download and then run that particular model. So it's very easy to use. Hugging Face is much more like the Wild West, shall we say? When I first started working on this set of presentations probably a month ago, there were nearly 1.5 million different models. Some of them are audio to text or image to text, some are video to text, many, many different kinds. And it can seem overwhelming, but just as you can filter things down using a search parameter on Olama, you can do the same thing with Hugging Face. So when I searched for models that were specifically developed for Python, oh, that was only 1,735. That's almost nothing by comparison. But again, you want to be careful on which ones you are downloading. In conversations I've had with other people who are also concerned about malicious code embedded in models, the recommendations that seem to be coming more floating to the top in these conversations is you're going to want to download a model that has more downloads and also something that has good ratings. So if it only has one good rating, but over 1.99K downloads, that might not be a model that you want to play with. Or if you do, make sure that it's in a containerized environment like a virtual machine or something like that. So now it's demo time. And let me wake up my mouse here. And okay. So this demonstration, we're going to start with Olama, and I'm only going to demonstrate Olama software. Olama is easy for anyone to start with. There are multiple platforms, as I mentioned before, so you can do Mac, Windows, Linux. I'm using the Linux option, and I did it in my WSL instance. The beauty of working with Linux, it's a single curl command that I can copy to my clipboard with a single click. How cool is that? And now I go into my terminal and I paste it and boom. Oh, forgot. Gotta have the password. One moment while I fetch that from my password manager, paste it in, and this right here is why I now record all my demos, because rather than wait for the entire download, we can just zoom past. And voila, install complete. Run Olama from the command line. I run it, and yes, it installed and it's working. Let's clear the screen. Now I want to see if there are any models present. Ooh, error. What happened? Depending on your operating system, you may need to open a second shell and run the Olama service in the background. Again, I believe Mac users don't have to use this, but you may have to. This shell has determined, or that service found my GPUs, and now I rerun the command and I have no models installed. So let's fix that. Go into the models. By default, Olama lists the models by the most popular. And here you can see that some of the models have multiple versions. Llama 3 has 70 billion for that one version, but Llama 3.2 has both a 1 billion and a 3 billion. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the command, pull it down, copy it to my clipboard, and let's pull the terminal back up, paste it in. Now, if I were to run this command as is, Olama would first check to see if the model was present. If it was present, it would immediately launch that model. If it wasn't present, it would download the model and then load it. So what I wanted to do first is just pull it. So Olama pull, and then the name of the model will retrieve the model, and then will just return you to your command prompt. I can do this as many times with as many different models as I want. I run a llama list there. Yes, success. Gotta love it. And I pulled Mistral. I pulled Phi. Phi is created by Microsoft. It's actually a very nice, comparatively lightweight model, but it behaves very well. And as you can see, in addition to the model itself, there are other dependent files that get pulled by the same command. So Olama list, I have my 3 models in place and we are ready to roll. So let's run Phi. Has to do its warm-up exercises. Downward facing dog, salutation to the sun. And those 3 angle brackets tell me that I'm into the interaction with the llama itself. And of course, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? This is a good way for me to see how much pop culture information is in the model. And I guarantee you run that exact same question in 3 different models, you're going to get 3 different responses. This is fairly respectable. And then, bye helps me exit out. And now let's run a different model, Mistral. Again, has to do its warm-up exercises, get a cup of coffee, maybe a Danish. And we're ready to go. Same question. And the whole purpose of running the same question in the different models is to illustrate the fact that the 2 models will behave slightly differently, similarly, but the emphasis that each model provided was slightly different, and that has to do with the data contained within the model and how it was trained. A slash question mark will give you access to the help feature. And so let's see, show, what do I want to show? Let's show info, which will tell me more, give me more information about this model in particular. Architecture's llama, the number of parameters, content length, license, lots of good stuff. So I'm would help if I could type. I'm barely scratching the surface with this, as you can see. So that's how you install and run Olama. Now let's use Olama to customize a couple of models. Going to the Olama GitHub, github.com/Olama/Olama. Scroll down past all of the gajillion files until you finally get to the README content. And you're seeing a lot of the same information here that was on the website. It's available for different platforms. It's also that wonderful one-liner command and Docker and libraries and how to get it running, different models that you can use. And we're going to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Aha! Finally, customize a model. There are multiple ways to customize a model. I touched on some earlier. What we're going to do now is I'm going to use a model file and combine that model file with a pre-existing model to create something new. And the instructions I can put into this model file can be very simple or very complex. And there's a full example. If you go to the GitHub, they have step by step, do this, do this, do this. So you make sure that you have a model available. The first line in your model file is going to be from whatever base model you're starting with. The hashtags serve as comments, so you can include inline documentation in your model file. Parameter temperature 1. The temperature determines how creative your model is going to be. That temperature is a range from 0 to 1, 1 being the most creative. Next, we get into the system message, and this is the heart of it. Everything after system, and it's triple double quotes. Everything between those balanced triple double quotes is my actual system message that determines the personality, the voice, and now we get into the, let's see, I want to pause this for a second. We get into the line itself. So the syntax is Olama, create the name of what you want your new model to be named. TAC F is telling Olama there is a file that you are going to use with instructions on how to customize this model. And then you have the path and file name for whatever the model is. Once your model is created, it's simple. Olama, run, and the name of your new model. That's all there is to it. So let's resume the playback. For this demonstration, I created two separate model files. So the first one is I'm going to show the contents of the Daffy model file. Yeah, I know the GitHub has Mario. Mario's not my favorite guy. I know your mileage may vary. He's cute, he's sweet, but I like Daffy. What can I say? So I made a Daffy model file, and now I'm going to create a model that will behave as Daffy Duck. So Olama create Daffy, TAC F. Here's the path to the file that you're going to use. And more typing malfunctions, yay. Gotta love tab autocomplete. Success! Hurrah! And now let's run the Daffy model. Boom. Loaded like nothing. And Hello, how are you today? You can see this is a very frivolous demonstration, but it also shows you how easy it is to customize a model to take on a specific personality. And I'm going to make a prediction here. I believe, and I know I'm hearing it in various industry channels, in the future, video games like, Baldur's Gate or whatever the Doom thing, whatever, the NPCs are probably going to be running off of small, focused, large language models or other AI models that will help control their personalities and behaviors. Because look how easy it was for me to create my own personal Daffy Duck. Imagine if you didn't have to be stuck to a script as you're playing your video game. Upsides and downsides, it'll take a while before they perfect it. Now let's do something a little more complicated. And I want to list the various files that I have. So I made a Daffy model file and I also made a quiz maker model file. Let's display the contents. So scroll up because this is much more in depth. I have from Llama 3.2, so I'm still using the Llama 3.2 model as my foundation, as my base. I'm still setting the temperature parameter as 1 because I want the creativity. And then notice the system message. I have a lot more content in this system definition than I did the last time around. And I'm going to admit I cheated. I stole from the best. This is lifted from one of the patterns in Daniel Miesler's Fabric project. If you are not familiar with Fabric, I highly, 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 highly recommend that you check it out. The heart and soul of Fabric is the patterns. If you never install Fabric, if you never use Fabric as it is intended, look at the patterns because they are a master class in prompt engineering. And if you're working with large language models, the better you can improve your prompt engineering skills, the more you'll be able to get out of them, not only in training custom models, but also in interrogating them. It's about asking the right questions. So this is analyzed paper. You've got the identity, the steps, all of that stuff. I wanted something a little bit different. So I am going to go straight to the system.md, the markdown file, which is the heart and definition of what this does, identity and purpose. You're an expert on the subject defined in the input section. You're going to generate questions for a student. And here are the steps, and here's the output instructions. And here is an example that you should emulate when you provide that content, and the input is what is going to be provided by you when you interact with that model. So I copy pasted that quiz pattern into my model file, and now I'm going to modify my command, and let's back up. Quiz maker. I like to have the name of the model and whatnot. Yeah, naming conventions are your friend. And it worked. So now let's see how well it works when I put it to the test. So first time around, I'm asking it to make a quiz with 3 questions about, the astronomy of the solar system. Not only that, I'm going to specify the target audience. We're going to start off with kids who are in the 5th grade. Sorry for typing so slow. Now, I asked my model to provide the answers after providing the questions. didn't quite work out as well as I expected. I think I need to tweak my model file. But here, this is a simple astronomy quiz that is absolutely appropriate to a bunch of fifth graders. Let's change things up a bit. Oh, yes, that's right. Where are the answers? Like any other LLM, whether it's Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, within the context of this conversation, it will remember what I just asked it. So I said, give me my questions. And yes, the questions actually are correct, although I still think that Pluto has been short shifted. It should be a planet still. But hey, your mileage may vary. So let's target a different group. Let's hit sophomores in college. As you can see, the questions, they're still astronomy questions, they're still about the solar system, but they're much more appropriate to a college level student than the ones before. And I said, where are my answers? And it gave them to me. So this is how easy it is to create a custom LLM that has a specific focus. Using customization and using RAG, you could conceivably set up a chatbot that was for a help desk, or maybe you're creating a specific tool where you how do I want to put it? You've got a help desk, you have a specific application, you want to train your chatbot so that it only provides good answers to people who want to know, and maybe you can't afford to have 50 people running help desk, so you want to add in a private controlled internal chatbot to deal with your internal people to provide them easy access to the answers they need, and then be able to escalate it up to a human operator when it gets really sticky and nitty gritty. So that's my demo. That's exactly how easy this stuff is. Key takeaways for the entire presentation. Local LLMs are not difficult to install and customize. I'm betting that probably everyone in this chat right now is more than capable of doing absolutely everything I just did for your entertainment. They can be used by individuals or for organizations for better privacy or for customization. The customization increases the relevance and the ROI. And if you take these techniques and you combine them with the techniques that Ben is providing in his adversarial AI class, learning how to attack AIs, that's going to empower you to make your local LLMs better and stronger and less susceptible to attack, even by internal people who may or may not intend to be attacking it. RAG will let you interrogate documents and data, so that adds even more cool stuff that you can incorporate into your LLM AI implementation. Finally, knowledge is power. The AI genie's out of the box. It's not going to go back in. So you are, it's in your best interests to learn as much as you can, not only to stay relevant, but also to be able to use these cool new tools to better yourself and your life. And that's what I got. Time for Q&A.
First of all, well done, satellite dish, for keeping everything going. We only had one dropout. And then secondly, most importantly, well
Yeah,
done, Bronwen. Thank you so much
Bronwen.
for introducing, for people who weren't quite sure how LLMs work locally, but we still have questions. If
Oh,
you
I'm
have,
sure
We
I've
still have
been
questions.
watching the rapid scrolling of the
yeah,
Discord. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah,
yeah, there's been a lot of questions.
there we go.
So we're going to stick around for questions. If you have questions, feel free to ask them inside Zoom or in Discord. If you ask in Discord, then the community may be able to help answer your questions. They also might get buried, so Zoom might be a better place.
Yeah, or
Okay,
ask a question again. I will start. How about that? So I
yeah,
see
let's
one.
go.
I actually see one. How would we make it use external data? Special models? Question mark.
You would have to external data like having it scrape the web, I guess.
I believe so.
External data, a lot of that would depend on other configurations. I mean, you can do a lot of things with API connections. Fabric is a perfect example of that. It runs locally, but it uses you can use Fabric with a local model, but Fabric also works with different APIs and API keys to reach out to other services like YouTube and so on. So it's going to depend on your implementation and how complicated you want to make things.
Great answer.
Here is the next question. Are we limited to one model at a time? It seems like makes sense to run a prompt against multiple models with multiple trainings.
I'm I don't know. Honestly, I would not be surprised if it was possible, but most of the implementations I have seen have been with one model at a time.
Uh,
Uh,
and then Deb, before you get your question,
sure.
if you haven't checked in yet for Hackett in the Discord server, please check in for Hackett. We manually tagged like 400 people during the webcast, but if we missed you, we don't want to miss you. So if you're on the Discord server, please engage somehow in the live chat, and then we'll give you credit for being here today. And then once you hit 10, we'll send you a free reward. Same thing with 20, 30, 40, and 50. For those of you that have received rewards, tell them it's true. All right.
Tell them it's true. Tell them it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you already checked in, you don't have to check in again. Since it is manual, we know we could automate it, but we like seeing what you guys write. So, next question: how would you pretext an LLM with files/knowledge base?
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, maybe Roswell,
I
you
mean,
could post in a different way. Or
yeah, pretexting is social engineering. So are you talking about an adversarial attack?
let's wait for some clarity.
All right. So I got a question. How do you set up a model for, say, analyzing CVEs? What fine-tuning would be needed?
Well, obviously you would have to have access to a CVE database. Let me pull something up here and hold on one moment, and then I will ask to have the screen be shared. Okay, if you would share my screen. So, the challenge with the CVEs is that they live on third-party systems. The CVE definitions are either on NIST or MITRE or some other third-party system. So if you have the ability to use RAG where it's accessing that information, you can use that as a way to do that. Now, the CVE summarizer I made, I have a series of prompts baked into it, but you can do this exact same thing with a local LLM. Now, this shows the examples show how the input is handled. So all you need to do in this instance, say, tell me about, and then the CVE identifier, and it's thinking very hard. Wow, it's giving me two different responses. Never a dull moment. Did I mention that this field is evolving very quickly?
Think so.
So the way I constructed this is that it gives me the reply in the format of a report. And in this case, it's giving me two different ones. So first it tells me what the CVE identifier is. If there's a popular name, I've specifically requested that, severity, description. And then are there any mitigation steps and known exploits? Interesting thing, when I first built this, ChatGPT wouldn't tell me about any known exploits, and it definitely would not provide me links to proofs of concept.
Hmm.
So it has evolved. It's I need to tweak this because it's doing this to me a lot lately. But if I go in, I can pull up the sources that it used. You know, it's an imperfect science. What can I say? But what I've done here, I absolutely could do with a local LLM. The challenge would be to make sure that I have either an RSS feed or some other API to be able to retrieve the current CVE information from the reputable sources like NIST, MITRE, etc. Okay.
Do you have a question, Deb?
Uh, Someone is asking for you to kindly walk them through a Hugging Face search filtering for a good general purpose chat model, like a safe transfers model, as I've heard those are very safe. Please and thank you.
Hold on a second while I type slowly.
And then Megan, wait for Bronwen to say okay to share her screen.
It's always good clarity.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, what type of model were we looking for?
Uh,
Oh, you know,
general,
Hugging Face.
good general purpose chat model through a Hugging Face search filter. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're looking for just a general chat model, probably what you're going to want is, well, let's just type chat.
Do that.
I tend to go with the larger ones, so the Quen is better than Mistral and Phi and other Western created models if you're using an Eastern or Cyrillic typeface or you're using an Eastern language. DeepSeek has some issues about how it's been configured to not allow information, but again, it is going to be more friendly if you're using, if Chinese is your native language. It's the recommendations that I'm seeing are something like you want to see a lot of downloads and you want to see a lot of positive reviews. So it's again, I tend to go with the larger organizations like OpenAI, like Mistral, like Anthropic, because there's less opportunity, or Gemma, I think it's actually pronounced from Google. Those larger organizations have vetting and protections in, not 100%, but they definitely have more security built in. And so it's much less likely you're going to get a poisoned model if you go through one of the big ones. But again, recommendations that I've seen are you want a number of downloads and a large number.
Oh no. Oh no. The satellite.
Only
Not the
twice.
satellite. Yeah,
Twice
like
though. That's not bad.
yeah, not bad. We got like a minute. I was gonna do like the final
Make
thoughts and
sure
then we're
you
gonna
have
stick
it
around.
Oh, here she
containerized.
is. She's back.
All right, she's back.
Last
Yeah,
deal.
if you see a model that is from somebody you don't recognize and it's only been up for 3 days, buyer beware. I would test it in an isolated containerized environment like a virtual machine.
Bronwyn, I want to let you know right now, I don't recognize any of these models.
Yep.
Never seen any of these before in my entire
Buyer
life.
beware, Jason.
All brand new to me. All right. So, Brian, we're running up at the end of the official time. Then, if you can stick around for about 10 more minutes, where there's so many questions, I'm going to send you all the questions so that way you have like material to make another webcast if you want to.
Well,
Uh,
I will go. I'm going to spend probably the next hour and a half going through Discord and responding to as many questions as I
I
have,
love
just
that.
That's
because
awesome.
I'm just that kind of crazy person.
I love that. I love that. So, if
Thanks.
you see any questions in there, you're like, oh, that would make a great blog or webcast, feel free to do whatever you want. All right. So,
I see
if
what
you
you
could
did.
wrap up everything that you talked about today in just one final thought, what would it be?
It's pretty much what I had on the key takeaways.
Mhm.
This is this stuff is not difficult. You can, if you know how to rock a command line or use they have Windows and Mac applications you can run on your system. This stuff is so much more accessible now than it's ever been before. And, explore with it. Knowledge is power. And plus, the more that you learn about the behaviors of the local LLMs, you can apply all of that knowledge to ChatGPT if you're asking, like I say, just how to make a better rice pudding.
Bronwen, thank you. Thanks for being excited about this to get the rest of us excited about this. And for those of you that joined us today, thank you very much for being here for this Black Hills Information Security webcast. If you ever need a red team threat hunt pen test or any of the service we provide, including AI security assessments, which is new, we have a team internally that have been studying AI for quite some time, like Bronwen. They get super excited about, they talk about it all the time.
All the time. All the time.
Yeah. So if you ever need our service, you know where to find us. We are very approachable, and we're not going to sell you something that you don't need because that's just not who we are. All right, Deb, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts, final thoughts. Just thank you again. I always like to thank you for spending your time with us. We know there's so many things you could do during this hour, but just we really appreciate you showing up and hanging out with us. So that's all. Just thanks.
All right, so we're going to kill the official time now. Bloop, bloop,
Yep.
bloop, bloop, bloop. Don't kill the webcast. Okay.
Good job, Bronwyn. Well
Yeah,
done.
Ron, we're in
Thank
post-show
you.
You are
banter. We've
not
been
a
here for
pupil.
2 hours so far.
Uh,
My lunch is over there getting all nice and cold. It's fine. It's all good. It was fun. It was very
Yeah,
fun. Bronwyn, fantastic presentation. Well done.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, and we'll stick
Thank you.
around for if you guys have any other questions that I'm sure we missed. Please feel free to pop them in the
I
chat
feel like
again.
this is an important one because it was like the premise of the webcast. I just couldn't squeeze it in. So how do we know the software we use to manage the LLMs are not gathering our data? How is it
Yeah.
possible that any data we feed the LLM strictly stays local?
Well, if you need to use an API key, that's a key indication that it's not local. Also, air gap your system
Mhm.
if you're and see if it still runs. That's a really key thing. If you have to go to a website to use it, yeah, it's not local. If you're able to install it and everything works, I mean, truthfully, when one of the nice things I like about Olama is that once I have downloaded the models, I can completely air gap my system and run it as many times as I want, have as many conversations as I want. And
Right.
the same kind of thing works with LM Studio to a degree. It does have a little more interaction with Hugging Space, but again, once you've downloaded the model, once you've pulled it into your local system, you should be able to completely air gap it and have everything function as expected. It's
Huh.
only if you're doing something where if you've expanded the functionality where it is reaching out over the internet, but that's beyond that, then you're not doing local stuff anyway, then you're pulling in outside resources.
Do you think the LLM gets sad because it's air gapped?
Well,
Well, hopefully it won't get sad. I mean, I hope that it likes me well enough that it won't feel like
Is
I'm
this
not good enough for it.
uh,
is this like a little Tamagotchi? Like if you don't talk to it eventually, the LLM just dies and it's just like
we can ask
Well,
them.
see, that's the thing though. A lot of people like to say that LLMs are the key to us getting to AGI, which is artificial general intelligence.
Hmm.
And I honestly don't think that LLMs are going to manifest AGI because they're still reactive. They don't do anything. We were talking about inner monologue
Mhm.
earlier during the
Yeah,
pre-show banter,
yeah, super
and
important.
and LLMs don't have an inner monologue. They don't have introspection. They don't. It's they simulate and emulate how humans think to the best of our ability as humans to program them, but they're not capable of thinking on their own. Not yet.
Yeah.
It's
Right
not
now, there's
helping
one
Ben's,
that's, oh, go ahead, Deb.
it's not helping Ben's case at all. It's just- that's all I was gonna say.
Aw, Ben's a good kid.
No,
Yeah.
Ben's
the
a good
intern he
kid.
doesn't have internal.
Yeah, he doesn't have an interim monologue.
He's an
You know what?
LLM.
Different strokes.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things about this universe is there are so many different varieties
Mhm.
of experience, so many different kinds of stuff. I mean, just look at how many different kinds of tree there are. Look at how many different kinds of stars there are. Look at how the wonderful variety of humans. It would be boring if everyone was the same.
Hmm. Yes. I don't think we'd like a bunch of the world being the same as us.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And
no. We need
how
variety.
often do you go about updating your models, and when you go and
Mm-mm.
and when do you go about retraining it? I have a feeling this person might be from Canada. It's just no.
The some models are updated more frequently than others. In order to update a model, though, that's where you're getting into the intensive retraining. So if I have a model and I want to update it, and I have to basically start from the ground up, that's where you want the GPUs and you want as many as you can possibly afford, because the amount of computational effort that is required to train a model is intense. And then once you train the model, you have to test it. And when you test it, then you have to go back and find where it went off the reservation and did things you didn't want to. And it's not so much guardrails, but it's course correction, very similar to what we do with our children, where they're doing things that we don't want to. So it's very challenging to train a model, and even if you're taking an existing model and retraining it at the lower levels, it's not at all trivial. What I showed you is very simple, but if I want to add a whole bunch of data to it, I've got to start from the ground up, and that's where you have to understand the data science. You have to understand how to chunk all of the incoming data down into individual tokens, and yeah, that's where your brain melts, your buffers get blown. It's a lot of intensive skull sweat. So they don't tend to come out. It's not like apps that may come out 3 times in a week. It's much more, the intervals are longer in general.
So to everyone watching still, there's like 455 of you here.
Wow.
We've noticed a bunch of people coming back since like 2023, 2024. And so we're not sure if it's the topic or if you're seeing our emails. Because for a while, like our webcast numbers I tweaked the emails. The emails, it was terrible.
Oh no.
Webcast went from like 2,000 people to like 300, and that's fine. Like 300 people, that's still a lot. But we felt
That's
like
always
1,700 of you were missing out. So we noticed over the last couple of weeks, since we fixed it, we're seeing a lot of people come back for the first time. So is it the topic? Is it that you're seeing our emails? Is it both? Is it both together? It's fine.
been getting certificates lately.
Yeah.
Uh,
And if you didn't know, if you go to, you get certifications sent to you from a credible. So sometimes people are like, wait, yeah, you get like a cert, like a little thing sent to you that you attended this so that you can use for CPE credits. So definitely check that out if you haven't found it. It's probably in your spam folder that you use to register for the webcast. And you're like, oh, I don't use that email that I use to register for webcast. And you're like, well, that's where they all are. That's where they all are. So, all right.
There we go.
Bronwen,
yeah.
you,
Yes.
I know you're going to look through all the questions
Yeah.
and answer those. Is there anything that you feel like you didn't get a chance to cover? Like you're gonna like as soon as we turn this off, like, oh, I wish I would have said. Is there anything like that, or did you cover it all?
No, I think I covered all the bases at this point. I mean, There's so much more. This was just one tiny sliver. It was a basic introduction. If you want to know more about it, there are a lot of trainings. There are a lot of online resources. There are YouTube videos available, and and of course you can always reach out to me. My I'm on Discord sporadically, so if I don't respond right away. Have a little patience, but I will definitely try and reply to everyone. And it's evolving, it's changing, and probably half of what I said today will be outdated 6 months from now.
How do you feel about that?
Keeps me honest.
I know. Yeah.
It's a challenge. Well, that I've enjoyed that about information technology since I got involved with it. It's constantly evolving. I'm constantly learning, and basically, if you get bored with this stuff, uh,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jason, I think that's
All
time.
right, that's it.
That's
All right,
it.
Megan, you started this thing almost 2 hours.
Hours ago.
Megan, thank you so much for running the back end support, for
Yes.
doing all the things. Bronwyn, thank you for sharing your knowledge with the community. And for those of you that showed up today, thank you so much. I will be back next week for the news on Monday, and John's teaching a SOC core class next week. So if you want to take John's Pay What You Can SOC core class, it's starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. And then Ben's teaching his exploiting AI. And then we're doing a spring sale at the Spearfish General Store. We got comic books coming out in May. You know, when you say it all out
Yeah,
loud,
I'm
it
tired.
sounds like a lot. All right.
It's
Thank you
so
so much for joining us and participating in any of the things that we do. We appreciate you.
yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
and
guys.
thank you for this opportunity. It was a really good time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Megan, kill it with fire,
You
Megan.
know what?